she wanted to go again. It's so it's one of those things where it's validation. So what she needs to do is she needs to feel connected to you, because you need to validate that oxytocin that's in her body.
Be manly and the legends of humanity. Welcome to the Fellowship of Honourable Men and Women Role Models for Boys and Men, because you have the power to be a man in all its glory.
Good morning, Damian Andrews for Be Manly and the Legends of Humanity. And we're continuing our talk about sex and how sex works, and always remembering that both parties, both men and women, like sex. They want to have sex. It's biological need, otherwise the species wouldn't continue. So there's an inbuilt drive inside us to want to have sex, both for men and women. And we'll talk about the motivators there for both men and women in different episodes. But what we want to talk about here for you guys is the run to the finish, or the finish. And this is really, really important for having sex, or wanting to have lots of sex, is to make sure from her perspective that she does finish. But it's not about having massive orgasms, although they are really important, but they don't happen all the time. So you need to get that out of the mind of your mind, of this thing that you want to get right to the end, and that she has this massive explosive orgasms. But yeah, I mean, they do happen, and they're wonderful, but it's not an everyday occurrence, and probably most people would get exhausted if they did that. So need to get this perception of this constant, it's exactly the same all the time. And to put that in perspective as well, remembering if it was exactly the same all the time, that's where it gets kind of boring. And to say that sex does get boring over time in a long-term relationship, well, it's not correct. I know many people that have been together for many, many years, for 40, 50 years, they still have fantastic sex lives. I know from my own personal experience, a relationship that I was in for 12 years, a little bit over 12 years. Throughout that relationship, the sex got better and better throughout that relationship, and probably to the point where it was the sex that was holding together the relationship at the end. But the thing is, all right, how does that work? How does that happen? How do we get this run to the finish? How do we get this finish, especially for women, where they want to have sex? And it is about that finish. And it doesn't mean every time she will have this massive explosive orgasm. Yes, she will, if you do it properly. I'll cover that in different videos. But from the perspective of, let's look at it from the biological side of things, what happens. For women, and there's a lot of research on this, that when they're having sex, certainly when they orgasm, or when they're close to orgasm, they start producing oxytocin in their body. Now, oxytocin is a bonding chemical that brings you closer together. Men produce it as well, but women certainly produce a lot of oxytocin, definitely when orgasm. So how does that connect with sex? You need to validate it. You need to ensure that when she has this chemical, high concentrations of chemical in her body, that you validate that. Which that means when things finish, there's an element of holding, being close. It's like, oh God, I've got to do that too. Well, yes, but it doesn't have to be hard. I mean, depends on the person. You've got to work with your partner. Everyone's different. And that's another topic we'll talk about understanding each other. But you need to validate that oxytocin, and you can do it in a number of different ways. That, from my perspective, that's even happened where we've finished. I'm laying there, she's got her head on my chest looking at me. I've fallen asleep, my arms are around her. I've fallen asleep for a little bit and then woken up, and there she is smiling at me. she wanted to go again. It's so it's one of those things where it's validation. So what she needs to do is she needs to feel connected to you, because you need to validate that oxytocin that's in her body. And the way you do that is be connected to her. Take that time, just relax together. Be together. You can do that in a variety of different ways. But generally, certainly, when you finish, sometimes you can even, this done that times too, where it's a little bit messy. So, you go and grab a towel, but come back, hold her, let words that you appreciate her, that she's special in your life. Just anything to show that you are connected to her, because that's what oxytocin is. It's a connecting chemical, it's a bonding chemical. So that's me, Damian Andrews, for Be Manly, Legends of Humanity. Sex. Finishing sex, wanting sex. Certainly from a woman's perspective, you need to validate that oxytocin. All right, that's all for me on this morning's walk along the beach. I'll talk to you in other episodes about different aspects of sex, how to stimulate, and because you can be driving along in your car, your partner next to you, and she looks at it and she goes, "Oh my God, I want you so badly right now." But that's for another video.
Before you go, you're invited to continue the Be Manly and the Legends of Humanity journey. Subscribe to our YouTube and become a patron, where you can become a courageous crusader, a wise warrior, a daring dynamo, and even an ascending avenger. Here you'll find all the tools to become a man in all its glory. We're honored to walk side by side with you on this extraordinary adventure. Together, we're unleashing the full power of manhood, creating a better world for everyone.